The drama surrounding the Indiana Fever's stunning upset over the Las Vegas Aces wasn't just about basketball. It was about defiance, resilience, and a refusal to bow to intimidation. On a night when the league's brightest star, A'ja Wilson, was supposed to shine the brightest, everything flipped. The game that began as a coronation for the defending champions ended as a cautionary tale reminder that arrogance can quickly turn to desperation when an underdog refuses to fold. Before the opening tip, the spotlight in Las Vegas was all on A'ja Wilson. Hours before the first possession, she stood at center court, MVP trophy in hand, celebrated as the face of the league and the anchor of a dynasty. This was supposed to be her night, her stage, and the beginning of yet another statement series for the Aces. The cameras flashed, the arena roared, and everything about the moment screamed inevitability. But the glitz of the trophy presentation faded the second the game began. By the final horn, the shine of that hardware felt less like a crowning achievement and more like a cruel distraction. From the start, the Las Vegas Aces came out, throwing weight around screens that looked more like blocks. Elbows that caught ribs instead of basketballs, flops designed to fool referees rather than opponents. Wilson set the tone herself, not with skill, but with shoves and cheap shots that looked less like the play of an MVP and more like the frustration of a bully trying to impose her will. On multiple possessions, she lowered shoulders into smaller defenders after the whistle, tossed Lexi Hull to the ground without a call, and exaggerated contact in ways that fooled no one except the officiating crew. What Vegas called physical play, the Fever recognized for what it was, desperation masked as intimidation. Indiana never blinked. Every shove was answered with poise, every cheap shot fueled sharper play. When Wilson leaned on elbows and theatrics, Kelsey Mitchell leaned on pure scoring brilliance. Shot after shot fell through the net, each basket more deflating for Vegas than the last. What was supposed to be an MVP coronation became a showcase for Mitchell, who exploded for a playoff career-high 34 points. Her buckets weren't just points on the board, they were dagger after dagger, silencing an arena that had come expecting a celebration, and leaving them stunned by an underdog that simply refused to bow. The Aces entered the series as heavy favorites. The chatter before tip-off painted Indiana as a footnote, a shorthanded team missing 6 key players, including stars like Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. Analysts dismissed them as little more than an obstacle in Vegas's march to another title. Even Aces coach Becky Hammon dismissed the Fever as untested, reminding everyone that they hadn't seen the real Aces yet. The tone was clear. This was supposed to be a statement series, an effortless first step on the way to another championship. But the Fever embraced their role as afterthoughts. When nobody expects you to win, there's no pressure. You play free. You run, you shoot, and you fight without fear of what happens if you lose. And that freedom was obvious from the very first possession. Indiana attacked with pace, zipped the ball around, and played like a group with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Vegas, for all their banners and bravado, looked a step slow, caught between overconfidence and disbelief. As the game wore on, frustration boiled over for the Aces. Instead of tightening their execution, they leaned harder into shoving matches and flopping theatrics. Jackie Young threw her weight into screens that looked more like football tackles. Players away from the ball caught blind hips and shoulders. Wilson herself continued the antic swinging elbows on rebounds, hooking arms and throwing herself to the floor, trying to manufacture fouls rather than earn points. But the strategy backfired. Indiana didn't break. They smiled, regrouped, and answered every shove with sharper execution. The more Vegas scrambled, the stronger Indiana became. By the second half, the defending champions weren't just losing, they were unraveling. What began as arrogance had transformed into panic. Missed layups piled up, tempers flared. And for every Vegas misstep, the Fever had an answer. Odyssey Sims steadied the offense, fearless in her drives to the rim and relentless on defense. Tasha Howard and Brianna Turner anchored the paint with disciplined positioning, absorbing hits without retaliation and stripping away the Aces' rhythm. Lexi Hull thrown around and shoved all game. Locked down Jackie Young with suffocating defense, holding her in check and finishing with the best plus-minus of the night. Every Fever player found their moment, turning Vegas's physicality into fuel. And then there was Aaliyah Boston. On the very night Wilson was crowned MVP, Boston flipped the script entirely. Possession after possession, she forced Wilson into collisions, bodied her off preferred spots, and made her fight for every touch. Wilson, the unstoppable scorer, finished just 6 of 22 from the field, a brutal stat line that told the whole story. While Wilson resorted to flops, complaints, and frustration, Boston played calm, composed, and controlled, anchoring the Fever on both ends of the floor. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One star flustered, the other poised, and the result, a shocking road victory that few saw coming. It wasn't just that Indiana won, it was how they won. They didn't survive Vegas's physicality, they exposed it. They didn't let intimidation knock them off balance, they thrived in it. Every shove, every flop, every desperate foul reminded the Fever of why they were dismissed, and every possession afterward was their answer. This wasn't a lucky night. It was a systematic dismantling of a champion that thought it couldn't be touched. The numbers underlined just how massive this upset was. 72% of teams who take Game 1 in a best-of-5 go on to win the series. Indiana didn't. Just steal a road when they flipped the entire series math in their favor. They humbled the defending champs on their own floor, rattled their MVP, and claimed their first semifinal victory in over a decade. Inside the locker room, the mood reflected that seismic shift. Lexi Hull, who had been shoved and battered all night, echoed the spirit of the team. We're capable of whatever we want. That belief was everywhere in Mitchell's fearless scoring, in Boston's composed dominance, in Sims' veteran leadership. The message was clear. Indiana wasn't just happy to be here. They came to take something. Meanwhile, the Aces were left searching for answers. Becky Hammon spoke of miscues and missed opportunities, but refused to credit the Fever's stifling defense. Wilson walked off the court with the MVP trophy, but not the performance to match. And the champions, who came in expecting a statement. Series suddenly found themselves in an unfamiliar position, embarrassed at home, down a game, and forced to adjust. Game 2 looms as a test not just of strategy, but of character. Vegas will try to hunt Kelsey Mitchell harder, to get Wilson easier touches, to lean into experience and reclaim control. Jackie Young may be glued to Mitchell this time, desperate to prevent another scoring explosion. But Indiana plays free, without fear, and with momentum on their side. Stephanie White has her roster believing, injured players cheering like extra coaches, in a locker room that embodies we over me. The Fever have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that makes them dangerous. For all the hype around Wilson's MVP night, the real story was written by the Fever on a shorthanded roster, the toughest arena in the league. They didn't just compete, they controlled. They flipped the balance of power and reminded the WNBA that sometimes the overlooked are the most dangerous. The Aces entered, expecting to showcase dominance. Instead, they exposed weakness.